So I really love macro photography, as you all know, but what do you do in the winter when all the subjects are gone? I decided to try some macro photography the other day, even though there aren't many insects outside. I was using my Tamron 90mm lens for Canon with a Metabones adapter on my Sony A7 camera. This is a great macro lens, it's very lightweight and it is not that expensive, great value for money. Another important thing to bring with you on a macro photography walk in the winter is extra batteries, because the cold tend to drain batteries a lot quicker. So this is how the lens looks on my Sony A7 with a Metabones adapter. It looks quite big, but compared to most other macro lenses it's not that big. So I noticed that there was some frost on my balcony window, so I decided to start my photo walk on my balcony and see if the frost would make for a nice picture. A nice thing with frost on a window pane like this is that it is almost completely flat, and we like photographing completely flat things with our macro lenses since the focal plane is so extremely thin. We can actually fit most of the subject in that thin focal plane without much trouble. And yeah, the picture came out pretty okay. Not an amazing picture, but it was okay. I decided to take another picture on an area with more dense frost. And I think it also came out like quite okay, but not like mind-blowingly amazing. So that was warm-up. Let's go outside for real and try to find some nice thing to photograph. Actually, the idea for this photo walk was born the day before. I was out walking in the evening and I noticed that there was a lot of interesting frost on most things outside. The frost was like layered, it had been cold for a couple of days, so it was like thick frost on everything. This is a nice subject, a couple of nypon, we'll call them in Sweden. I don't know the English word right now, but yeah, you recognize these things. And it looks quite nice, right? With thick frost on them. And it made for a pretty nice picture. So I continued along the way that I had walked the day before to see if I could find more frost-covered things. And so I did. Almost everything looks more interesting when it is covered in this kind of quite unusual thick frost. I don't see this kind of frost many times a year. I think probably the weather has to be in a certain way for a couple of days at least for this kind of frost to form. As usual in macro photography, I just set the focus to roughly the place I want it to be, and then I just moved the camera back and forth to find the right focal plane. And sometimes I managed to get the focus in the right place. I was pretty happy with this shot. I took some other shots of things covered in frost, but not all of them came out very good. So I'm only showing the ones I was like pretty happy with. And actually I was considering not even creating and posting this video because I was so unhappy with most of the pictures that I took this day. But then I thought that, hey, I need to show reality, and in reality you sometimes, or quite often actually, have photo walks where you don't get many good pictures that you're really happy with. This frustration with getting crappy pictures, that is something you can actually use to your advantage. The stronger your frustration is, the more you can actually learn from it, because then it gets you thinking. For example, this shot, I was really unhappy with how thin the focal plane was and how the frost is only visible like on the edge. That irritated me a lot because this could have been such a good picture. But this irritation actually got me thinking, okay, either I should have used a flash so that I could have used a smaller aperture, or maybe I should actually try a smaller sensor. What if I would try macro photography with a Micro Four Thirds camera? I actually bought one recently. Maybe I would get a deeper depth of field then because of the smaller sensor. So this is an example of how the bad photo walks are actually the ones that tend to improve your photography the most, because that feeling of frustration, it always gets you thinking. So these walks might not be enjoyable, but they do a lot for your photography. This was another shot that could have come out great, but I messed it up by having a background that was too white. I mean, I could have had my hand behind it or something, but now it was just too bright and you don't really see the subject in a good way. A couple more shots that I'm not completely happy with. The depth of field is far too thin, same problem as with the previous photos, and this makes them look a bit unsharp. Even the sharp areas don't really look that sharp. On my way home I decided to walk through a forest to see if I could find anything interesting there. I found the frost on this bench a little interesting and decided to try a photo of it. Not super happy with it, but I guess it's okay. Something a bit unusual that I found in the forest was these, like, I don't know what to call them, like snow sausages, snow ropes, snow strings, I don't know. But they looked kind of interesting and I decided to try to photograph them. And this is an example of a subject that might have looked cooler in reality than they actually looked when I photographed them. But it was good practice, and I mean, at least it looks a bit interesting, but not that pretty maybe. This looked a bit interesting, and I tried to make a minimalistic composition of it. And guys, one last note about this whole thing with taking pictures that you're not completely happy with and that you don't completely love. It might be worth posting them still, as I try to do sometimes, because what I've found is that quite often other people find the pictures a lot nicer than I find them myself. So it might be worth experimenting with posting pictures that you don't love yourself, because quite often other people have a different taste. For example, my previous video about winter photography in Boden, I actually considered not even posting that video because I wasn't like super happy with the photos. And then it turned out that a lot of people really loved these photos, and that also made me view them in a different perspective. So go out there, take photos, and I mean, delete the really bad ones, but post the ones you love and the ones you almost love as well, because other people might like them more than you do. That's it for this video. Please like it if you liked it, and please subscribe to my channel if you want more photography inspiration.